Welcome to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. We interview great guests who inspire you to overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Be sure you visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, just relax as you listen. You can do something else, but be ready to make an important note. And let's get started.
The title of this interview is How to Create an Unstoppable Life. And my guest is Amrita Rose. The categories and themes of this conversation are positive psychology, life coaching, career coaching, and that little talked about but extremely important thing known as resilience. And our guest, of course, as I mentioned, is Amrita Rose, and she's going to be talking about her new self-help book coming out and a great new DIY, for those who don't know, that means do-it-yourself online course that she has, both of which help people increase their resilience and create lives that feel happier, more aligned with their core values, and more successful. And she's also going to be talking about some simple ways that people can increase their resilience and confidence through meditation and positive psychology practices. Now, a little bit about Amrita. She is a life and career coach, a Akashic worker, a yoga and meditation instructor. She has multiple certifications and trainings in various traditions of yoga and yogic science, as well as several traditions of meditation and pranayama, which is breath work. She brings an integrated blend of positive psychology, yogic science, somatic awareness, that means body for those who don't know, and movement, energy, and meditation to her work with clients around the country. Since 1995, her classes, coaching, and energy work invite people of all levels to broaden their perspectives, increase mental and physical flexibility, and deepen connection to body and mind while building resilience through a unique combination of practices. With that all said, welcome, Amrita. A pleasure to meet you.
Tony, it is so lovely to meet you and talk with you today. And thank you for the delightful intro.
You're quite welcome. And this is not uncommon. Obviously, we're both in the change work profession. We're both coaches. We're all about personal development. So those listening, which is, I hope there's a bunch of people. That's the idea of this. And by the way, in case you don't know, Amrita, 99.9% of the audience is listening. We put this on YouTube. Mm-hmm. This is an audio podcast, but as an extra, we put this on YouTube. You and I just met just a few minutes ago, but then we discovered next to change work that we have so much more in common. She's a sailor. I'm a sailor. We talked about upstate New York, where she's from, and I talked about how much I love it. I actually grew up going to upstate New York, and I have plans for Lake Placid area, where she spent a lot of time. Did you say you from there originally, Lake Placid area?
I'm not from there, but I lived in Keene Valley for a number of years, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Now, I love the Adirondacks. Anyone who visits them would, but of course now Amrita lives in the Sirius Mountains. She's out in Colorado. Anyone in Colorado, they don't mention the Adirondacks, or worse, the Catskills to them, because they'll give you some serious inferiority complex, because the Rockies are very, very serious mountains. Yeah. But I have a dream.
Yeah. Although Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I have a dream of having a place out in the Rockies, and I've never been, because those mountains are just incredible.
That's why I moved here, is I wanted bigger mountains. Although, weirdly, we got more snow in the Adirondacks than we do out here.
It's great.
And I tease everybody out here for it. I'm like, what happened?
My God, I know. The snow upstate New York is a very serious thing, but I figured in the Rockies it can get more serious. I mean, you heard of the Donner Party, right? The Donner Party, right?
Yeah.
So,
But if you're near, I'm near Boulder, Colorado. And so near Boulder, we don't get a whole lot of snow. When you get right into the mountains, absolutely. Yeah. And powder rather than ice skiing. So, yeah. But it's lovely being back in the mountains.
It's, we're both sailors. I love sailing. I love being on the water, sailing with no motor, being just me and God. If you want, everything's God, but no motor. There's nothing more divine than that wind, and you having respect and cooperation with it and getting to go where you want to go. And it's that, yeah, go on.
Well, no, you saying that, it literally just sparked an idea that, being a sailor is very, I mean, it's going to sound somewhat simple or straightforward, but when we're sailing, we're actually in resilience, because every single minute you have to be totally present. Yes. And I hadn't thought about this until you just said it, but I'm like, wait a minute, when you're on the water and you're in the wind and something happens, you have to be very present, because you have to know, okay, what am I going to do next? But you can't be thinking ahead because you have no idea what's coming next. So yeah, it's just funny that you meant, we got to talking about sailing when we're talking about resilience too.
And it's something that, I'm an ex-paratrooper, right? And so I used to fly the planes with the Army. And I remember there was a slogan up on the wall in the rigging hangar. And it said, in the sea, you can make one mistake. Okay, as a sailor, you can make one mistake, but in the air, you can make no mistakes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but whether you're a paratrooper or a sailor, mistakes are great in trying to accomplish something. But when you're dealing with the really relatively unforgivable, forces of the water and the wind, we don't belong on the water, and we don't belong in the air. Only with respect do we get to visit those places.
Yes.
Then we can with cooperation with God. And when I say God, I say that in the most non-religious way possible. Then we can find that we can get what we want by using laws of physics, laws of success. And that was a bit of a digression, which was a wonderful one. I wanted to say that so being out in the water is just awesome. And one of the things I love about sailing is that there's hardly anything more relaxing or more terrifying than sailing. Sometimes I have both emotions at the same time, which is quite an experience. When that gust picks up or a squall is coming, and you're relaxing. Oh my God. I love the water. I love being in the wilderness. I love being in the woods, especially when it's snowing. It's quiet. Virgin snow, the snow is coming out. It's one of the greatest places, and it only gets better than that by being up in the mountains, because then you start seeing those vistas and those views and those huge swaths, these big horizons full of snow. Oh my God, it's just so awesome. So
I wrote the book that is just coming out now. Can I show it? Because I'm so excited about it.
Please.
So this is, let's see if I can get it to work with the screen.
Back it up. There you go. Yes, right there.
There you go. Okay, so it's No Plaid Suits. I'll stop moving. How to have a not boring normal life.
I love it.
And the reason that I wanted to show, first of all, it's the first book I've written, so it's I'm really excited about it. And it was written, it's funny that you talk about being in the snow in winter in the mountains. So it was written, the first year it was written, I spent 3 months in a cabin on the Clark Fork River outside of Missoula from January to March with a wood stove and my dog on 6 acres and lots of snow. And it was the way that I started writing this book. And there was a lot of, I did a lot of hiking and snowshoeing every day with my dog in between writing stints. But there is something about really being fed by nature, right? And for me, I always talk about nature and being outside in the mountains is my church, because to me, that whether we want to call it God or spirit or universe, there is an energy that we all feed off of as humans. And that's also, in the Eastern religions, it's called the Akashic field. And so that's literally, that Akashic field is what quantum physicists call universal energy and universal consciousness. So no matter what name you give it, we're all part of this connected energy field. And that's part of what I love about the work that you and I both do.
You know, it could have seemed like a setup with everything I said to segue, but it was not. It was not contrived in the slightest. It's so true.
So,
We both just happen to know through our own individual experiences, and she just testified how she really walks the walk. 3 months isolated by herself, but with a dog. Oh my God! I'm gonna tell you, I'm a dog. I have 6 cats now. One died, but I'm really a dog guy. They're all rescue cats, and I traveled from New York to California with my dog. I became homeless in Los Angeles and dog. So we've been up mountains, down valleys, across rivers. You know, it's nothing like a good dog, especially in the wilderness. You know, I mean, you're my new temporary hero. All right, Amrita? This is fantastic. And you wrote a self-help book. And this is, if you're watching, which no one is, everyone's listening. Our book mentions plaid. I put on a plaid shirt, but I'm not wearing a suit. Okay, there's a plaid short sleeve. I think
and that's a good one. So the title actually came. The book and the title. The book came out of a series of blog posts I was writing when I was living in Asheville, North Carolina, a couple of years ago, right before I moved to Colorado. And I was writing for 2 years. I was writing 6 days a week in this local coffee shop. And every time I got stuck for a topic, I would ask the millennials and the baristas who were working there, like, what do you want to know at the end of the day today? Like, what would you like to know that you don't know now? And then I would take whatever topic they gave me and I would write an essay on it. And eventually people kept saying, well, when are you going to write the book? Like, when is this all getting into the book? And that's what prompted the book. And the title, No Plaid Suits, comes from one of the essays, because I had a friend who's this super great guy, has it together, super smart, very creative, very good looking, like corn-fed. He's from Iowa, like, you know, football, blonde hair, very, very, very nice guy. But he couldn't get a date to save his life. He'd get like one date and then the women would just disappear. And he's like, what is going on? And I said, dude, you're wearing a plaid suit and you don't know it. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I never wear plaid. And I go, no. The plaid suit is all of your old habits and behaviors, and you're putting them on every morning and you're not looking at them, and they're clashing with whatever these women are wearing. So you got to check, like, what are the habits and patterns that you're showing up with every morning that you need to let go of, and just put on a nice, you know, white t-shirt and a good pair of jeans and a cool pair of sneaks. That was where the title came from.
Fantastic. And I think a plaid suit can be cool as hell, but you're not going to be getting any dates wearing one. You're not going to be going on dates. You're right. You're not going to be going on dates or getting dates wearing a plaid suit. Now, if you want attention, you want to show how individualized you are, which I'm all for. Fantastic.
Right.
But in terms of dating, you'll try to get some matching, try to get a little subtlety going on.
Yeah. So, but that was where the title came from. And and just that idea, you know, the idea of when we all walk around and we have these habits and we don't really see them. I mean, it's why coaching works so well, right? Because it's so much easier. We've all had this experience where, you know, we've got a friend and they show up and they're super excited about the person they met that they just started dating. They're like, oh, this person is so different from everybody else that I've ever dated. And you're like, no, they're not. Right. And we can see it. Right. But they don't see it. And we're like, yeah, you know, this person is pretty similar to who you've dated in the past. No, they're totally different. And then a couple weeks later, or a month or two later, man, that person was the same. And it's like, yeah, we tried to tell you that because we can see it. None of us can see our blind spots. We all have them. You have them. I have them. You know, we've all got them. And it's also one of the reasons why, as coaches, you know, there's always that moment where we can give as a gift to our clients or a gift to other people that we know, like very gently to say, hey, do you see this habit that's showing up? And maybe you want to just look at what that habit is creating in your life. And then you get to choose. Do you want to hang on to it, or do you want to toss it out the window and get a new habit?
Absolutely. We all have these patterns, and most probably the beliefs at the root of them were instilled in us from age 1 through 4. All right.
Yes.
And not that we didn't learn things later, but they were built on top of that core time. And we have
Yes.
biases and prejudices, no matter our denials. And the thing is that to become aware of them and decide, do they serve us? Do I want to keep using them? And change that. Now,
Yeah.
you've just written apparently a great new self-help book, which is fantastic. And I mentioned when we were talking before, I created Proficio, which is a revolutionary
Mhm.
virtual coaching program, which is going to make self-help work. And I love self-help, but if self-help work, that would have been a millionaire 20 years ago. Then why am I not the millionaire? My goals were never financial. They just, I always, all the goals I make are X, and the finances are just like a bonus,
Yes.
an outgrowth. It just happens as an also. But anyway, so why, I've read countless self-help books. Why didn't I get the results I want? Well, going back to, what are they? They're the patterns, the pervasive patterns that I have. Unless I break them, all right, then
Mhm.
they're going to be pervasive and they're going to be persistent. So you've got to, how do you break them? Well, you get a coach like Amrita, right? Or you continue to persist and to replace. Otherwise, they will come back. They will come back unless we keep it in our awareness and keep persisting. And then you can take the principles of a book like Amrita has written, or any other personal development book, and stick with it. And that's why the coaching profession, which we're both in, has been growing since it began in the early 90s. More and more people are getting coaches because we help people really get results. We help people pursue their goals. I would say self-help is a huge field, but most people are not into self-help. Why? I contend because they fear failure. Why should I read this book if I'm not going to succeed anyway? And that they may have some validity to that, but I also will contend that they're having a negative manifestation. But then a person wants to get more serious about getting results. They get a coach like you or me or in this growing field. But most people don't. Even less people want a coach because now they're going to have accountability, or they think a perceived pressure, or perceived fear of disapproval, right? That they think a coach will judge them if they don't do well, which of course that's the worst coach would do that, right? Coaches don't do that.
Yeah, that's not a coach.
Right, that's the worst kind of coach would do that. Well, coaches, would be exactly. But that's a primary reason why I created Proficio. And I think it's going to create a success revolution. That nonetheless, books like you've written, a person like you are, thank God for you. Thank God you do what you do, because we do great work. I mean, a coach is like a therapist, but didn't have to go to school and is focused more on the future as opposed to therapists, a little bit focused more on the past. And we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Into reconciling the past. All right, I don't want to jump ahead. All right, let's take. I'm trying to restrain myself, because I can see you and I can have a digression or a tangent at any moment.
We could talk for days, clearly.
We're simpatico, no doubt. Okay, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor, and we'll come right back with Amrita Rose.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Proficio. When people learn something, they want to use it so it has real value. And the best teacher is experience. Visit www.proficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where Proficio will have you taking action with what you're learning immediately. You'll be closer to your goals before you even realize it.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza. We're having a fantastic conversation with the great Amrita Rose. We just mentioned her book. We're going to get more into that later, because I want to know more about this book. But let me get into some other questions about what you do as a coach. And you may profess it in your book, probably. But okay, firstly, what are some simple, let's talk about some immediate value that the listener can get. What are some simple practices that people can use to feel more confident and less stressed?
So I thank you for letting me, because I love giving these things out to people. So there are a couple really quick practices that people can do, and you can try one or two for a week and then see how it goes, and then you can add another one, or you can, if that one's not, if it doesn't land with you, try the next one. So the first one, and a lot of people may have heard about this, but the first one is a morning gratitude practice. And I want to point out that it sounds, when I first heard the word gratitude practice, I thought, oh my God, I'm not religious. I'm not going to do a gratitude practice. But when I started to study positive psychology, I realized, well, what gratitude practice really does is that it allows us to acknowledge what is working well in the world and what is working well in our lives. And human beings, because we have survived so long, we have an innate tendency to focus on the negative, because focusing on the negative kept us from getting killed by tigers early on. And so we're always hyper aware of what is dangerous, what could kill us, what could derail us. And we don't often spend as much attention on noticing and acknowledging what's going well. So here's a really simple practice to do. And I love doing it first thing in the morning because it starts my day out really well. It's called What Went Well and Why. And all you need to do is, you can do it out loud. You don't have to write anything down. You pick one thing when you wake up in the morning. Maybe you make your tea or your coffee, and you pick one thing that has gone well in the time it took you to get out of bed to the time it took you to have your tea or coffee. And you just name, like, this thing went well, like, it's a sunny day, or wow, this is a really good cup of coffee this morning, or oh, my dog or my cat looks so sweet, or my kids were so quiet this morning, it was awesome. And then you want to name why. So if it's a sunny day, why? Oh, because I took a moment to look out and notice that it's a sunny day. Or, oh, my dog is always so cute and so sweet, and she's so fuzzy. So you want to name the what went well and why, and pick one or two every morning to start your day. If you really want to get into it, you can write them down. And then at the end of the week, just review them so that you're really acknowledging all the things that are going well. And just check in and like see how your whole day goes after you start your day like that. So that's the what went well and why practice. And then the second one that I really love, because I love sparkly things. I think the world would be better with more sparkles and glitter. It's called a joy jar. And you can get a big jar, and it could be, big. I like a big glass jar. So go to Marshall's or something like that and get a big glass cookie jar. And then you put colorful pieces of paper in it. And on each one, you write down something that went well that day. And at the end of the day, you put them in, and you can put a couple in every day. But when you're having a really bad day, like you get home from work or you get off your 5 million Zoom calls for the day, and you're like, oh man, I feel wrecked. Like that was a really hard day. Reach into your joy jar, grab a couple, and then read them out loud to yourself. And what it does is it reminds us of what's going well. And it's a way to build gratitude into every day. And here's the important thing about gratitude. I'm terrible with figures, so if I screw up this figure, please forgive me. But there's a lot of data in positive psychology. And one of the data points is that when we do a gratitude practice every day, there's a 47% reduction in depression.
Wow.
47% reduction in depression. And if you do the gratitude practices for 3 weeks straight, the effects last for another 3 weeks. Wow. For every week you do it, you get a month more. And for every month you do it, you get like 2 or 3 months more of effect. And the effect never diminishes if you keep doing the practice.
Fantastic.
So think about that versus, I'm not saying people don't need, medication for depression, but this is also another way if you're having seasonal affect disorder, or you're just having like everything's really weird from pandemic, right? If you need to boost your mood, try gratitude practice. And these are 2 easy ones. So the joy jar and the what's working well.
Oh, I love it. I could say so much about it. Let me just say this. First of all, I what you show, I have suggestions and techniques to use the idea of investment. I invest into something. Why would I want to ruin it or give up on it? And I think that's part of what's a dynamic that's at work with your jar of colored things. That, you've got an investment there that you can use, and then of course it's tactile, and then there could be a surprise, and that's great. But aside from, and I have, I happen to be a recovered drug addict. And I used to go to AA and NA, and I would always announce myself as a grateful recovering addict. And people, of course, in our society, we love instant gratification. You don't have to be an addict to want that. And we're very drug-oriented society, very, we want things quickly. So people want things in a pill. And that's a big problem, I think, in the world. But I would say to people, if you want that magic pill of recovery, the magic pill of addiction recovery is made of gratitude. Okay, that's what it's made out of. Take that magic gratitude pill, swallow that, and then you won't use drugs. And I don't work with people one-on-one anymore, but I just took on someone, my nephew, because my nephew as a mentor to recover him in addiction, just very recently in the last few weeks. And he also suffers from depression. And the first thing that I get him on is this gratitude, because gratitude is where it's at. It is a game changer of perspective, of feeling, when things don't suck so bad, and that you want them and you're grateful for them. It's a whole other experience. And I really have them go through the hoops. I have them write a gratitude list every morning, and with no repeats. Repeats. Okay.
Yep, that's a great one too. Yeah. The other one, can I share one more that I really love that I use all the time when I'm in a really bad mood? I do one of two things. I either bake brownies and I give them to my neighbors, or I go to the supermarket. I find some excuse that there's something I have to buy at the supermarket, and I get 2 bunches of flowers. And after I check out, I look around and I see who looks like they're having a bad day. And I hand one of the bunches of flowers to them and say, I hope your day gets better. And then I take the other bunch home and I stick it in a vase. So I get to look at it. But man, I can't tell you how much it lifts my spirits every single time, almost to the point of tears, every time when I hand those flowers over and that person's face lights up. Because that's the last thing on earth they expected when they were, having a terrible morning, or their kids are screaming in the shopping cart, or, some guy is like, man, I'm having a really hard time. And you just hand them these flowers. So.
Amrita, the more we talk, the more I'm elated, and maybe in a narcissistic way, because the more I see we have in common. What I like to do is when I open a Chinese fortune cookie, is to save the fortune. I never throw them out. I save them so I can disperse them and distribute them arbitrarily later on. And I walk up to people and I just give them a fortune from a fortune cookie that I've had. And I just give it to them. I said, this is for you. And then I walk away. And there's something good in there that they're going to extrapolate, that their mind's going to find in some transderivational search, and let the fortune do the work. And so, there's so much good if we look for it. Like you said, we're naturally negative. I was extremely naturally negative. Now I'm still negative, but I'm constantly weeding my mind from the negative weeds that grow there, the garden of my mind.
Yeah. And I think too, our culture really teaches us to be negative, because if we're negative, right, if we lack something, then we need to buy something to make ourselves feel better, or we need to work harder to make more money so that we can buy the big house or the big car or the right clothing. And think about how much our world would change if we all realized that we are infinite, eternal, and whole. And we don't actually, we're not lacking anything, right? Can you imagine what the world would be like? Industry would probably fail, but just imagine how much kinder and how much more empathetic we would be on the street, meeting people every day, just the people that you run into, the way that our culture would be if we recognize that we are lacking absolutely nothing as humans.
All right. Everything is an add-on. Everything's an addition.
Yeah.
We already got, we're not broken. And if you want to use that term, then fix yourself and then be done with it. We have all the resources we need internally. If we need external ones, then you use your internal ones to get them. We've
Yep.
got it all. Okay, great stuff. All right, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor. We're going to come right back, and then we're going to get into resilience, because I know you've got something to say about that, and I want to hear what you've got to say about it. Okay, we'll come right back with Amrita Rose, and we're going to be talking about resilience.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Perficio. When Ben Franklin arrived in Philadelphia, all he had was 10 cents in his pocket. Despite this, he became America's first self-made man. Visit www.perficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io to actually have the knowledge and principles of Ben Franklin transferred into yourself.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza. We're having a vivacious conversation with Amrita Rose. And I'm doing my best to keep us moving in a direction, because we can go any direction. This woman and I, we're for the same tribe. Let's just say that, and in the same area, the same tribe. And not that we're so great, but we're committed to personal development. So we learned a couple of things along the way. I think that's a pretty good description of us. And forgive me if I'm too presumptuous in that statement, Amrita.
No, I'm right there with you. I feel like we're, like you're the long lost brother that I've been looking for.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That is, thank you. I concur. Very good. Hello, sister.
Hello. Nice to
and
see you again.
You too. It's been so long. My brother, he gave me a compliment very long ago, many years ago, and a compliment from him is like a holiday, because man, it's pretty rare. And it was many years ago, and he said, "What I admire about you is your resilience." And I was like, "Wow, that's great." And that is a great thing for a person to have. I would say more than that. I'm not touting myself. I'm just saying that's something that I strive to have. As a paratroop, I learned that, roughing it and being able to deal with what comes. But life's a bitch, okay? And a person's got to be able to deal with it, because it will knock you down. It will grind you up if you let it. And nature is cruel, and not because of any malevolence, but because if you find out that there's a great benevolence in that. And the same thing with the difficulty of life. It can seem like a malevolent situation, but it actually has a great benevolence. And if we get away from the judgments, then we'll discover that more. But it's hard, it's difficult. And I gotta tell you, I mentioned Perficio, which is this app that I've created that's gonna transform self-help and usher in a success revolution. I truly believe that. And I just turned 57. Mentioned I was a soldier, I was homeless, I was a drug addict, blah, blah, blah. This is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I've been at this 8 years, 4 years of pre-development, 4 years of development. We're over 2.5 years behind schedule, undercapitalized. No one wants to give me more capital that I need. This is the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in my life. And thank God for it. I welcome it, because this is what God has given me. Again, say that the most non-religious way possible. And it is hard as hell. I just established that. And if I didn't have the resilience to keep going, not only would I quit and then it would be over, the world will never know how great this possibly could have been. But I make sure that the world does. So resilience is a pretty important thing. I think you would agree.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things I was going to ask you to kind of flip the interview a little bit, but
oh my God, I'm on the hot seat.
I'm gonna put you in the hot seat for a minute. During the past 2 years or the past 4 years, how much, if you had to guess, like how many new things did you have to learn how to do to make this app? And would you ever have tried to learn how to do any of those if you hadn't wanted to bring this knowledge to the world?
Hundreds. The answer is hundreds. I had to learn hundreds of new things in the last years regarding this app. Hundreds. I wear 20 hats, at least 20 hats in the company. And I have a partner. He wears just about as many. and I'm constantly having to learn new things, and it's because that's what life demands of us.
Yeah. So that is, I mean, you just defined resilience really beautifully, right? Resilience is when we come up against something and we have to learn to not only move through the challenge, but grow from it. And growth is always knowledge. So being resilient is really about when things challenge us, we either have a choice. We can get stopped dead in our tracks and we don't move forward and we don't grow, or we find a way to grow from it and we move forward. And that's literally what being resilient means.
I love it.
So this app is making you even more resilient in the
I
process
love
of
it. I know, and even as difficult it is, I don't have a doubt that in the future I'll be able to look back and have nothing but gratitude for this difficult period that I went through.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Well, you know, I was thinking about, you know, would I change, like there was a time when I lived in my car and, you know, I write about it in the book, you know, about getting chased through a cornfield by the cops because I had slept overnight in my car in a cornfield. And this was in my late teens, early 20s. And all of the crazy jobs that I've had and all of the things I've had to do. And, you know, I look back and I think, but all of that led to what I know now. And I feel like I wouldn't give one piece of knowledge or wisdom away, right? As challenging and just heartache, you know, that was there. But it was also, you know, as you said in the beginning, it's really also about how we look at what's our purpose on this planet. Like if the purpose is to grow and to experience everything possible, and when we can shift out of thinking like, oh, this is terrible, I don't want to feel these feelings. Like, I don't want to feel anger. I don't want to feel frustration. I don't want to feel sad. But when we start to look at those experiences like, oh, this is an experience that I'm having, it makes it a little bit easier. I mean, I'm not saying that it makes anger fabulous or being sad fabulous or grief fabulous, but I think that when we can step back and kind of witness our own experiences, then we have a chance to be more resilient in those moments when we are having a really bad day or it's really sad or something terrible happens or we're frustrated. When we can step back and witness, oh, right, I'm feeling this now. And then notice, right, okay, so how do I shift myself out of that? What can I do in this moment? And to be honest, one of the easiest things people can do in that moment of like super sadness or anger or frustration is exhale 3 times, not inhale. Everybody always says, take a deep breath. Don't take a deep breath, because when you take a deep breath, everything tightens up, right? So exhale 3 times. I guarantee the inhales will happen.
Yes, absolutely.
All you have to do is concentrate on the exhales. And when we exhale, we trigger our parasympathetic nervous system. And that allows our body to calm down. And when our body calms down, our brain calms down. When the brain is calm, then it's easier to think clearly. And then when we think clearly, we can make better actions and we can choose the next thing we want to do. So it's this whole cycle that's so easy to get somebody into as long as you start with the exhale, which is the part I really like.
So a person can increase their resilience by relaxing, by relaxing, and you do that by breath, focusing on exhalation. Of course, they can also use their physiology to change their body. You know, and let's get into the next thing. So that's enough about resilience. I mean, we could go on and on about that, but we got much more to talk about. Let's talk about meditation. Most people hate meditation.
Yes.
And when I meditate, if I have a moment of silence, it's a major victory. It can be extremely difficult to shut down the monkey mind. And matter of fact, it is extremely difficult. And the more practice you have, like anything else, the better you'll become at it. What can a person do instead that will give them the same benefits of meditation? I know you're all about meditation, but that precise question.
Oh yeah. So 2 things. One is I want to correct what a lot of people think meditation is, because there are a million kinds of meditation. But the one thing they all have in common is that it means to focus your mind on one thing at a time. So if you're focusing your mind, if you're paying attention to one thing you're meditating. And the trick is pay attention to that one thing and then keep paying attention to that one thing. And then even if it's just a minute, you've meditated for a minute. The other thing is, Pema Chodron is this wonderful Buddhist monk, and she gave a talk.
Let me back you up for a second, Amrita.
Yeah.
So you're saying if you could focus on one thing solely, that's a meditation?
Yes, because that at the root
Oh, in that case, I'm
of
pretty decent at meditation.
right. And I think a lot of people, they think you have to sit there with your legs crossed and your hands in this position and say Om a lot, and that's meditation. Yeah, that's one kind of meditation. But if you look at all of the meditative practices, they all come down to focus your mind on one thing at a time and keep focusing your mind on that one thing intentionally for some period of time. It might be a minute, it might be 2 minutes, it might be an hour or 4. It doesn't matter as long as you don't let your mind move. And when your mind moves, because it's going to, right? When your mind moves off that topic, then you just bring it back gently. You don't yell at yourself because nobody likes to be yelled at. But so I could say, right, I'm going to meditate. Like I could actually meditate right now while we're having this conversation, because I could meditate on what is being said. Like, what are the words that I'm hearing? And I'm letting my mind stay on, what you're telling me. And I'm not being distracted by the fact that my dog is walking behind me right now, or my cat is over in the corner.
You'll have to forgive me, Amrita, because
Yeah.
I'm it's pretty ironic because you might see I'm distracted, but I'm actually very good distractions. So one of the distractions I would allow here, because I had a hard stop, but I see that just got canceled, which is I'm elated at, because I'm so enjoying this conversation that I want to let it have its natural flow. So I don't have that hard stop anymore. And I'm so delighted at that. And we can,
good.
Obviously we don't want to yammer on and bore people. That's
no. But
yeah. I'm very glad that hard stop is gone. So that constraint.
And right. So this is great. So, and you know this from coaching, right? When you're coaching somebody, often something will happen that's unexpected. And it always relates exactly to what you're coaching the person on, right? So what just happened in this, and I hope you leave this in if you can, but what just happened was we're talking about focusing on one thing. And in the middle of that conversation, right, we could imagine that your mind, right, got pulled away because you got this message on your phone.
Right.
And so that's a perfect example of what happens when we decide to meditate, right? We might sit down, or you might stand in your backyard and contemplate, just look at a tree or look at a beautiful flower, or notice, wow, I really need to cut the lawn, right? Whatever it is. But if you're focusing on that and then something pulls your mind away, you just want to bring your mind back gently and just say, oh, that's interesting. My mind wandered off. I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to focus again on the conversation or the tree or the flower or the fact that I'm looking at the grass, right? Whatever it is. And just that act of bringing your mind back, bringing it back and refocusing it, you will get better at it as you do it. But that is the practice of meditation. Fantastic. So it's not this like sitting, you don't have to wear a robe, you don't have to light a candle or strike a bell or anything like that.
So that's the mechanic of it. So what can a person do instead? Could you just focus on one thing and keep bringing their attention back to it? Is it that simple?
So the thing you can do is simply, when you're going about your day, whatever you are doing in that moment, just keep bringing your mind back to focus on that one thing. If you can, if you're working, right, turn off your phone, put it on mute, try and, if you've got, like, I get email notifications on my screen a lot when I'm working. I turn those off if I'm working on a project, and let your mind really focus on exactly what you're doing in that moment. And if you go through your whole day like that, so you're focusing, and then the next thing that you're doing, you're focusing, and then maybe you go to lunch and you're focusing on eating, right? Don't eat in front of the TV. Don't, you can have a conversation, but always be focusing on exactly what is in front of you. And you will go through your whole day meditating and not having to even think about meditating, because you've already done it for the whole day. Yeah.
I know the value of meditation, and I know the value of focus, and you just made both that much more accessible. Fantastic.
That's the whole point. Yeah. And it doesn't mean,
audience? It's great.
yeah, it's super simple. And I think people are scared of it because the way it's always been presented has been, oh, you have to sit for an hour. And who can, if we've not learned how to do that, that's really hard. It took me forever to learn how to sit for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, if you really want, like after you practice, just going through your day, paying attention to what you're doing and try and cut down on all the other distractions, right? Close your office door or close the door where you're working, make somebody else take the dog out, whatever it is. And then if you do that for a couple of weeks, and you'll start to notice that your mind feels calmer and it's a lot easier to make decisions and know what you need to do next. And then if you want, maybe you try, sit for 2 minutes. And I always tell people when I'm teaching meditation classes, sit for 2 minutes. You're not allowed to sit for longer, but for a whole week, you're only allowed to sit for 2 minutes or walk for 2 minutes meditating. And inevitably at the end of the week, they're like, but I want to do 5 minutes, or I want to do 3 minutes, or I want to do 7 minutes. So what you want to do is limit it in the first week to 2 minutes a day. And then just see what you naturally want to do next. And I guarantee you'll surprise yourself.
Wow, that's I can imagine it. I imagined it awesomely. That is fantastic. Let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor, and we'll come right back with the extremely value generous person known as Amrita Rose. Great stuff, Amrita. Thank you so much for sharing this with the audience.
This episode of Self-Help Coaching is brought to you by Perficio. Perficio learns more about you as you make progress and then uses that information to help you even more. It is quasi-AI. Visit www.perficio.io. That's PERFICIO.io, where you can be helped by something that learns more about you, because that is the difference that makes the difference.
You're listening to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast with me, your host, Tony Petrozza, and the fantastic conversation we're having with Amrita Rose. And by the way, I have to slightly modify what I said. I just thanked you for not just sharing this stuff with my audience, which is very valuable. But I want to thank you for sharing it with me, because I'm going to utilize this stuff. Thank you very much, Amrita.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love making people's lives happier. That's kind of why I do what I do.
It's great stuff. Now, obviously we're both coaches, and life coaches. There are at least 100 different kinds of coaches. Coaches are fantastic. First, a person helps one person help, with their life, in whatever facet or area. How can working with a coach or being in a group coaching really help a person create a better life?
So one of the things that coaching can do, and I think I gave this example a little bit earlier too when we were talking, is, we've all had the experience of doing something, and then a friend will say, you're doing that thing again that you do. And we're like, what thing?
Right.
And so a coach, the whole job of a coach is not to give advice. The job of a coach is not to tell you what to do. It's to point out the habits that you have that you're not seeing. And we all have it. We all have blind spots. We all have things we do that we don't recognize. And so when you're working with a coach, right, you generally, and I want to talk a little bit about the difference between therapy and coaching. So when you go to a therapist, typically you're going to spend a lot of time talking about, how did I get here? Like, you're going to talk about the past, right? And all the things that happened in the past. Very useful, great to work with a therapist for certain things. And then coaching starts where therapy leaves off. So coaching, particularly positive psychology coaching, which is the work that I do, coaching starts with, where am I now? Where do I want to get to? What are the action steps I need to take to get there? And so you spend time when you're working with a coach as you define, okay, well, where am I now? What's not working? What is working? How do I make more of what's working work better? What are the physical actions I need to take? And I specify like physical actions. Like, do you need to make phone calls? Do you need to do research? Do you need to write a paper? Do you need to have a meeting? But what are the physical actions you need to take to get to that goal that you want? And then the coach is the person that helps you when those old habits show up, the coach's, my job, your job, is to say, here's this habit I'm seeing. So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's see how it's getting in your way. And then, do you want to let go of it? What could you replace it with? What's a new habit you would like? Or what's a new belief that you want to hold about yourself? Because usually they're tied to beliefs.
Yes.
And then you move on, and then you create the action steps to move forward. You do some reflection, because it's always good to reflect on, like, what am I letting go of? What am I moving into? And then you move towards the goal that you want. And that's really the benefit of coaching, because it's really hard, as you've said. There's a million self-help books. There's a million different ways that people, can research and Google, like, how do I change this about my life? How do I change that? But it's really about having somebody who totally believes in you, because I don't know a single coach who takes on clients that they don't actually believe in. And then having somebody hold you accountable, whether that's the kick in the ass accountable, or whether it's the, like, yeah, that totally sucks accountable.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's also,
by the way,
somebody
I'm the more of the kick in the ass type, but I have
Yeah, me
flexibility,
too.
which I must.
Yeah. So there's always a lot of humor, and there's a lot of, like, so how's that working for you?
Yeah.
Right.
How's that dysfunction working out?
Right. So, so having the coach is the person who can also step back and say, hey, this is what I see happening. Take a moment to pay attention to this thing you haven't seen before. And then it's up to the client to really look at that. And so that's really where the work of coaching comes in. Tony, you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to touch on, because I thought it was really important. I think too, a lot of people, look at self-help and they're kind of turned off, because there's been this, like, self-help movement that's been rather effective. And I think there's two things that come into that. One is, I like the term self-generative, that when we're coaching people, we're really coaching them to be self-generative. We're coaching them into growth, and we're coaching them into being their own coaches and to feel confident in doing that. Because if we do our job right, they might come back for a tune-up at some point. But if we do our job right, they actually feel like, yeah, I've got the confidence. I know what I need to do. I know where I've changed, and I know how to look at things in myself when I get stuck or when I get challenged. And then the other thing is,
okay,
yeah.
go on.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, let me compliment that, but I want you to bring that thought out. As someone who created an app who's going to transform self-help, this is something I spend a lot of time thinking about. And it's very, and some people claim that self-help is an antiquated term, which I'm certainly not one of them. And they like the term personal development. I like personal development, which I think is a great term too. But I make a distinction. Personal development can be self-help, which is the kind of help that a person does himself, like reading Amrita's book, a book, or they can work with Amrita, and that is no longer self-help. That's personal development. Because if it was just by themselves, that could be self-help. But if they buy the book, or that's the self-help. But if they get involved in your course where you interact with them, now it's personal development. But we can also call it self-generative. It's a perfect synonym. If you have worked with them, because otherwise it's just self-help. And I love it, but it has some deficiencies.
No, I completely agree. And I love that distinction, because not many people make that distinction between self-help and personal development. And personal development could be, taking a bunch of classes from somebody.
Absolutely.
That's also personal. I learn Italian. That's personal development, but it's not necessarily self-help. So I love that you're defining it that way. Yeah.
That's great.
The other thing that I wanted to, that I think people also look at the term life coach. And one of the reasons they don't work with a life coach is they often think, well, I don't believe that I can change, or I don't know that this is going to be worth my time and money, because it's only, quote unquote, only my life, right? And one of the things that when I was, there's a blog post I wrote about where life coaching actually started, and I was actually surprised. it started with a financial advisor in the 70s. And this financial advisor who started life coaching as part of Landmark, he was part of the Landmark company, but he was
by the way,
given.
let me interject for a
Oh
moment.
yeah,
For those who don't know, Landmark Forum was the evolution of EST, which was very big in the 70s. And I love EST. I never went to any trainings of Landmark, but I love Werner Erhard. I'm all about self-help, so why wouldn't I? That was great training. And basically, for those who don't know, it's basically stop with the bullshit already and get real about your life.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Back to you.
Okay.
Back to you,
So
Amrita.
yeah, so he originated life coaching because he was a financial advisor, and what he realized was in talking to his clients about how to organize their finances and their financial life, he was also giving them life coaching. And so he coined the term in the 70s. And so this idea of, when we think about the value of life coaching, whether it's individual or whether it's with a group, I'm actually leaving tomorrow morning to go teach at a women's retreat. And part of what we're talking about is the beliefs that we hold around money, right? And that is a part of life coaching because that's a part of life, right? We all have to deal with money and ideas around money and how we make money and how we feel successful and how we measure success. And also how we can stand in our own power and how we can ask for what we need. Like a lot of people who do life coaching as clients, all of a sudden, after a few months of coaching, they're like, wow, I have the confidence to actually go to my boss and say, I've been here 3 years, I really deserve a good raise. And they know how to ask for it and get it. And I think that's also, one of the things that people think about when they think about life coaching. They just think about like their personal life, and they don't think about, oh no, it's my whole life.
Right.
It's all the parts.
Absolutely. And going back a step or two, in terms of therapists and coaching, you made an excellent description of it. And of course, we think about time all the time. We think about the past, we think about the future. And the thing about therapists, and therapy is fantastic. For many times I considered becoming a therapist until I finally said, wait a second, I got to stop with this almost recurring obsessive thought to, become a degreed psychologist and just focus on because of Proficio, which is this app which is going to transform self-help. I said, let me just focus on being an entrepreneur because I can help a lot more people and make a much greater impact in the world. I claim as this creator of Proficio. But therapists do great work and they help reconcile with the past. But the problem with the past is always over. Right? And
Yes.
right, it's always over. And coaches can help you with the future. And the problem with the future is we never get to the future. We're always living in the present, always, no matter how much past you got, no matter how much future you got, it doesn't matter. It's always now. That's the only true reality is now. And whether there be a therapist helping you reconcile with the past or future, a coach helping you pursue the future that you want, the magic is always now. That's the only time you can do anything. It's the only time your God can keep you clean from addiction or whatever. It doesn't matter. And if you read a book like Amrita has written, or you hire her and you're her client, or you're in a group coaching class, you've got to understand that the only time you can make anything happen is right now. And that's the great gift that we all have. I contend that the greatest gift that we all have is ourselves, our life, your life and my life. That's my great gift from God. And we share this beautiful gift, which is a universal gift, which is consciousness. That's all. We all have the same exact consciousness. We wake up in the morning and we have a thought. Welcome to consciousness. We all share it, right? But we have different minds, which is, and there's the ego, how I identify myself, right? My individual, and that's my ego, and my mind is my individual expression and ideas. And if we really embrace this reality, which is always now, whether we read a book or we get a person, an expert like Amrita, we can get the most out of it. And
Or we work with an app.
or we work
Or
with
we
an app.
work with an app.
It all depends on how much a person wants to improve themselves. Because guess what, people? Here's the secret. People, we want all sorts of things in life. I want this, I want that. The way you get it is by changing yourself, because you're never going to get anything that you never had before without doing something that you've never done before. You must do something. Go.
Yeah, you have to do something different if you want a different outcome. You mentioned something a minute ago about the only moment we're ever in is the present. And I know the idea of that can often be really, the idea of that can be often very abstract.
Yes.
So I want to can I give your listeners a little cool practice?
By all means.
So if you take a moment and you notice your breath in this moment, and again, notice your breath in this moment. Now, I'm going to bring your mind back from the past or wherever it's wandered into the future, and bring your mind back to this moment and take a breath and just notice your breath. And notice what you're feeling emotionally. And then let your mind wander back into the past for a minute and notice if anxiety comes up or regret. And then bring your mind back to the present. Notice your breath. Notice what you're feeling in this moment. And then let your mind wander into the future a little ways and notice if worry comes up. And then bring your mind back to the present. Bring your mind back to your breath. And so what you may notice is in the present moment, worry and anxiety and regret don't exist. But the minute we start to think about the past, there's a lot of regret. And when we think about, or recrimination is the other one, right? And when we think about the future, anxiety and worry come in. Because we can't know the future, we can't change the past. But when we're in the present moment, there's this calm, quiet, inner sense of well-being. So that's another practice that you all can give a shot to.
It's fantastic, beautiful. And people need to understand, perfect compliment to your technique, is that fear only exists between our ears. It doesn't exist in the world. And if we want to have it in the future, which is anxiety, or we want to have it about the past, which is regret, it's such a great waste, because those things don't even exist. The future and the past, they don't exist. The only thing real is now. So if you're gonna have fear and have it now, that's the thing that stops you. So you can get rid of it now where it stops you, or you can have it think about the future, which doesn't exist. You can have it on the past, which is over. Fear is the ultimate destroyer. And any point of time, those 3 points of time you want to have it, is so unnecessary and really something of a mistake, to use that term. Or in evolution, we're all very fallible creatures. But when you commit to personal development, you start really disassembling this fear, the effect of this fear. You may not be able to eradicate it, but you can improve your courage, right? And then you can feel the fear and do it anyway, which is awesome. And that's usually the description of bravery, by the way, people. It's not that person becomes a lionheart and it sans fear. No, they just feel it, and they have faith. Faith is a thing that a person needs more than anything, and that's believing in something without evidence, and you can get to that place using some evidence, but then there comes a point where you have to make a leap. You have to make some sort of leap, whether it be a small one or not, but you've got to say, I want more for myself. And then you go out and you get a book by Amrita Rose. You hire her as a coach, because you want more and you realize you have to be more to get more. And that's how it works. So can a person just buy your book, Amrita?
They will be able to very soon. It will be, so it's No Plaid Suits, How Not to Have a Normal, Boring Life by Amrita Rose. And it will be on Amazon very soon. There will be a hard print copy, an ebook copy, and then I'm about to actually go into the studio in a couple of weeks to record the Audible version, which I'm super excited about. So you get to listen to me snickering and laughing as I mess up, probably. But it will be, it's very important to me that it's really the heart and the voice that I wrote it in. And then in the
Amrita, I'm
meanwhile,
going to get
yeah.
your book on Audible.
I'm really excited about it.
I'm going to get it. Very good.
Perfect. And then, if people want to read my blog or get in touch with me, you can find me on anunstoppablelife.com. And then there's also, and you can figure out how to do this, but there's a free gift if you're listening to this today. There is a resilience toolkit, which is a self-paced course that includes 63-page workbook, audio lessons. Yeah, I kind of go overboard. It started as a 10-page thing, and I was like, well, wait, I really want them to know this too. So there's a 63-page workbook, there's audio lessons, there's guided meditation practices. And if you go through the whole course, you also get a free 45-minute one-on-one strategy session with me.
Wow. That's a great free gifts, plural. That's fantastic.
I know my business coach yells at me, but I'm like, no, this is why I'm in the world, to help people.
Thank you very much for offering those gifts to the audience. People, you're listening, take her up on the value that she offers you. That's great stuff.
Yep. So there'll be a code. I'm sure I'll give you the code, but there's a code for 20%. For 20% off for that.
Say what the code is right now, Amrita.
So the code is the word resilient, all capital letters.
All caps, resilience. When you go to
resilient.
Resilient. Okay.
Resilient.
Right. That's the adverb, or that's the adjective.
Yes. That's the adjective.
Adjective with the T, ending with the T. Resilient, all caps, to get the coupon code
20% off for the self-paced course. So the price is $97 and you get 20% off, and you get a free strategy coaching session with me, which is about $250.
Fantastic. So go to anunstoppablelife.com. You can get her free course. You can get the post free course, free consultation. Or no, not what is it?
So if here, let me make it really simple.
Yeah.
And we'll take a pause for your editor, because he's going to want to cut part of that. So
we'll just go on.
Yeah. So if you go to anunstoppablelife.com and you go to the sign up for the resources, that will take you to the page with all the resources. You'll find free resources there. You'll find the resilience toolkit. And if you go into the resilience toolkit and enter the code resilient, you'll get 20% off the $97 price.
Fantastic. And we're going to have all your social media profiles set up. We'll create a profile for you on our website, so a person can go to your social media.
Perfect.
On your site or on our site. You have been a really I would say refreshing, refreshing, but I would say, invigorating. You invigorated me, Amrita. So thank you. This has been so wonderful. You've given such great value to my audience. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on. It's a pleasure to meet you. Do you have any final remarks?
Just that it was really a pleasure talking with you, and I can't wait for your app to come out, because now I'm super excited about it. And even more so, I know you mentioned the school up in upstate New York, and that would be fantastic. And if you ever want somebody to come teach occasionally, I would love to do it.
That is noted. For those listening, I told Amrita before the interview, I have a dream to create a university up in the mountains around Lake Placid, the mountaintops, called American Success College, which teaches personal development and ways to improve the self. Doesn't teach academic curriculum, and it's going to be up in the mountains, tops. So great stuff. Thank you so much, very much. A pleasure to meet you, Amrita. And I remember, everyone, we're all responsible for ourselves, and we could all use a little help. And with that, thank you, Amrita, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Self-Help Coaching.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Help Coaching Podcast, where insights, attitudes, and methods for success get illuminated. Learn what leaders and change workers have done and are doing now to create magnificent futures. Remember to visit our website at self-helpcoaching.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Self-Help Coaching Podcast.